Hello, friends and family. This is Erin, and welcome to another episode of the If You Could See Me podcast. I'm excited once again to bring you a fantastic, inspiring, exciting conversation. This time I spoke with Jaime Reavis. Jaime is the founder and CEO of Be the Change Consulting Services. She is a certified peer recovery specialist, trainer, and supervisor. Most of all, though, she's a friend, and she is one of the brave and beautiful participants in the If You Could See Me project that is opening on June 7th here in Richmond, Virginia, and worldwide. And I was really happy to speak with Jaime. She's just a beautiful light in the world. She has such a sensitive heart and open mind and spirit. She loves people unconditionally. She is a helper and an advocate and a change agent. And I really love talking to her about mental health and about growth and about God and our spirituality and relationship to our spirituality, and her perspective on the world is a beautiful thing. And I hope that you enjoy that conversation. I've been thinking a lot, as usual, because I'm always thinking a lot. And right now, our culture is in the midst of another of those seemingly small and silly, brain experiments. You may know it as Yanny versus Laurel. It's this audio recording of a voice saying a word. And some people hear that word as Yanny, Y-A-N-N-Y, in a higher pitched frequency, and other people hear the lower frequency, which is saying Laurel. It's completely fascinating. Some people are totally over it, and I find it to be one of the coolest things in a long time. Sort of like that. What color do you see in the dress from a couple of years ago? The really cool thing about it is that it's a great representation of cognitive diversity, of perception, of the fact that brains are different and we see things differently and we hear things differently, and these are such clear proof, such clear illustrations of the fact that people are different. And it's so beneficial for us to slow down enough and to be open enough to absorb the experience of another person, or the experience of a thing through the eyes and ears of another person, through the heart of another person. It's really easy to get frustrated and annoyed and overwhelmed by the seemingly endless onslaught of useless, banal, ridiculous information that we are exposed to every day. But in this particular instance, I feel so excited and inspired by the magnificence of the human brain and our human ability to take in information and see it differently, and to share that perspective, those different perspectives, with one another. I think that that's really the key to everything, is just taking that time and slowing down and recognizing that every human being in some capacity is trying to create meaning, is trying to draw a box around the world in a way that helps us to not be afraid and overwhelmed by all the possibility and all of the options that lie before us. But if we draw that box too tightly, then we end up missing out on the possibility of seeing things in a different way, of having our eyes and ears opened, our hearts opened, our minds opened. So just remember to to slow down and to listen and to be open to hearing differences. My darling friend gave me a Zen page-a-day calendar a few months ago, and I was so appreciative of him for doing that. This is America's best-selling Zen calendar, 1 million copies sold, and surprising sayings, koans, parables, and haiku for the year. And today I flipped to, I don't follow it every day by day because, some of them speak to me on certain days and others don't. So usually I just open to whatever the day, the day is that comes open and see what speaks to me. So today I saw this quote that I thought was, it means a lot to me in my life, and in particular around silly things that we can choose to take seriously or we can, not. But this is from Hermann Hesse, and it says, "Learn what is to be taken seriously and laugh at the rest." I find that some days the thing I laughed at yesterday becomes very serious, and the thing that was very serious yesterday, tomorrow may be something I'm laughing at. So again, taking all of the ups and downs and ins and outs and facts and perceptions of life with a grain of salt, I think is definitely a very good bit of advice. Learn what is to be taken seriously and laugh at the rest. I really hope that you enjoy this episode with Jaime Reavis, and if you are so inclined, please subscribe, rate, review. Visit us on the website, www.ifyoucouldseeme.com. Consider supporting the If You Could See Me project. Consider sharing your own story. This week is Mental Health Week. In the midst of May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And we're trying to get the stories out, but we want to get them out every day because mental health conversations need to be had 12 months out of the year, not just one. Thank you so much, guys, and enjoy. Hello, friends and family. This is Erin Mahone once again. Welcome to the If You Could See Me podcast. Today, I am joined by the lovely and talented Miss Jaime Reavis. Jaime is a mental health advocate, a peer recovery specialist, a trainer, a spiritual presence, a light in the world, and I am so excited to have Jaime here talking to me today, as well as having Jaime as a part of the If You Could See Me project, which opens on June 7th here in Richmond, Virginia, and digitally across the world. So welcome, Jaime. Thank you for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me. Thank you.
Yeah. Hi, I love that. Just all goodness and light. So we were just talking before I pushed record, and I shut Jaime down because I wanted the rest of the world to hear the amazing things that she has to say. I said, I don't want you to have to repeat yourself, so let's wait so I can push record and invite the world into our conversation.
Yeah.
So, Jaime, why don't you start with, a brief history, if you will, about your mental health journey and the how you got from where you were to where you are now, and this sort of new phase of your life that you have recently entered into.
Ooh, okay. So I'm gonna try to keep it
just a little short. The history of your whole life and everything in it. Just quick. It's okay.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. Take it.
So, in the short, I will say that back in 2007, I received the diagnosis of depression and anxiety. Of course, it started long before that. Um, my journey of just trying to figure out, what was wrong. Um, of course, it came as a result of trauma
Mm-hmm.
and of many ways, generational trauma and just trauma in my young adult life. Um, and in overcoming that, I have found this peer community, peer support community that has really changed my life over the last 5 years, um, and definitely let me know that I have a hope and I have a future, and that I can also help other people recover from whatever diagnoses that they have. Um, I also have a diagnosis of this borderline personality disorder, and what that means is not a multiple personality disorder, but it's a mood disorder. And a lot of it, again, stems from trauma.
Right.
And I just want people to understand that you can overcome. You are not your diagnosis, and the sky is the limit, no matter what you've been through. Um, and I'm just happy to be here. I've been given a lot of opportunities that changed my whole entire world. And I really don't know that person that I was 5 years ago anymore. But I remember who they are because it keeps me humble. But I'm not that person anymore.
Right.
And so that's like a very short version of my story.
Well, that was very concise. I'm very impressed.
Okay.
We'll dig into all of it more. I'm sure throughout the course of this conversation. But when you think back on who that person was 5 years ago, what did she think was possible, and what were the things that went through her head about who Jaime could be?
Well, and actually, let me back it up a little bit. Let me go back to like 5.5 years ago before I got into the recovery movement. 5.5 years ago, when I went to crisis stabilization for the first time and went to the hospital before that, I was really unsure. All I knew was that I had suffered for a long time and that I was tired of being depressed and tired of feeling hopeless and tired of the wanting to die and the suicidal thoughts that I had. And I was very alone. I didn't know that I could share it openly. I didn't know that I could share that story. And I felt so much shame.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened when I was in crisis state was I learned about a community of people where I could share, where it was safe to talk about the things that had happened and that actually I was perfectly normal, and that the things I was experiencing, I was not alone.
Right.
Um, and so I went from very quickly from that person who just didn't even know what to think anymore about life, kind of feeling like I had been hoodwinked,
Yep.
to this person that was like, well, wait a minute, there is light at the end of the tunnel. There is more to this thing. And there is a possibility of finding your way. Um, I was uh, approaching 30, and actually, yeah, I was actually 30 already. Yeah, I was 30. So I was 30. And so by 30, of course, I thought that I was going to be in a much further along place than I was back then. And I had struggled so hard that I was not where I wanted to be
Yep.
or where I thought I would be. And so once I discovered this peer movement, everything changed. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. And so, what was your first experience like with telling your own story?
Man, It it was scary. It was scary, but I also knew I was in a safe place.
Mm-hmm.
I think the first time I shared my story kind of publicly was at a conference with Mental Health America of Virginia, and or MHAV as some people know it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first time I had told my story to anybody outside of a counselor. There were a lot of things that I hadn't even talked to my family about. And um, I think the only persons that really knew everything was my friend LaShanta Green. And she was one of the reasons why I went to counseling in the first place back in 2007.
Mm-hmm.
She was the reason why I ever sought help. And so, and then I had a couple exes that knew I struggled with a lot of stuff, but they didn't know what it was either.
Right.
So the first time I told it on that level was with Mental Health America Virginia, and it was scary as hell, honestly.
Right.
But it was freeing at the same time. It was like I was accepted and I was loved unconditionally. And for me, it just set the tone, I think, for the rest of my life. Um, and I don't even know if they know what they did for me.
Right.
I don't know. But and I always say my story, I have so many aspects of my story that it changes every time I tell it.
Mm-hmm.
But just to be able to say, this is what I went through and this is why I'm here. And for people to love me because of that honesty was new for me. It was very new.
I've been talking so much lately. I've been working with a lot of different groups lately and keep coming back to this. I mean, I guess for me, it's the crux of all of this, the idea that before I started doing this, I felt the need to constantly earn my right to be alive
Mm,
because of all the shame that I felt and the fact that I felt like I needed to hide and that I hated myself and I didn't I was pretending to be the person I thought that I was supposed
oh
to
my
be,
God.
but I wasn't actually that person.
Yeah.
And I just lived in constant fear that people would find out how hard things were. And
Mm,
so I had to prove myself constantly, and my self-worth was dependent upon the validation I received from other people. And the gift that I received when I started talking about this, I mean, first writing about it and then talking about it, was that people didn't love me any less
mm-mm,
for being who I am. And that was it was the thing that I told myself, but it wasn't true.
right.
How much more free you become when you realize you don't have to earn your value.
Mm, wow.
Like intrinsically, I mean, yes, we feel like we have to do certain things and be the kinds of people that we want to be, but the fact that we just exist on the planet is enough for
Mm,
us to receive love and respect and, be allowed to be wherever we are.
that's so deep. So deep. And I I don't think I ever thought about it that way as far as um having to earn my right to be alive, but that's basically what I was doing. Like when you explain it, it's like I relate so much to that fear of not being accepted or loved for just being who I am.
Right.
Especially growing up in the religious community.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and one of the things that I think saved my life, even before I got to crisis stage, was that I had somebody who I looked up to in the spiritual community that actually helped me understand what uh, God's love really was
Right.
for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't a religious thing. It wasn't this list of rules. that I had to follow. It was this unconditional,
Yes.
true love. Like that is the true definition of what love is.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I started to experience that for myself,
Right.
um, I think that was the straw that helped geared me towards getting help and saying it's okay to get help. It's okay that you don't have it 100% together.
Right.
And anybody that doesn't support you in getting help, well, they don't need to be involved in your life anyway. And that unconditional high regard, I had never I never thought that God would accept me that way because of the list of rules. And if you don't do anything right, you're basically going to go to hell. Like that's what I felt like man's religion was saying to me.
Mm-hmm.
But God's truth was something totally different than that. And it was almost as if he was picking me up and saying, baby, I got you.
Right.
And if you don't get help, you're not going to be here. And I need you to be here. And now I know that he needs me to be here to help somebody else learn that acceptance too. And honestly, it was that love that I think that saved my life. And then he allowed me to connect with people that actually get that love too
Right.
in the peer community. And um, again, I say it all the time, my life has never been the same, never been the same since then.
Right.
But I get everything that you're saying with that, like that fear, that validation. And the one thing that helps me now is like, even if nobody else accepts me, the greatest love of all accepts me. And so I'm okay.
Right.
I'm okay.
So, so much, uh, so much of your experience is within the religious community, and as also as a person of color, you
Yeah.
have, you know, that these are two communities which are, and please correct me if I'm wrong, um, don't necessarily automatically accept mental illness and
Mm-hmm.
seeking help for mental illness. And you know, there's some conflict within both the Christian communities and the African American community about accepting uh, you know, mental health as a real thing, and you know, needing to get help. So how have you navigated that world? You know, you're still you, and you still
Mm-hmm.
have the people in your life that you have in your life. How have you navigated that?
Honestly, now, and let me speak about now. Honestly, now I navigate it by I just don't care.
Right.
Um, at the end of the day, I had an actually I early on I had an African American counselor who was a believer,
Mm-hmm.
did consider herself a Christian, that basically said, you know, if nobody else understands, you have got to uh, basically find my way. And I sat in her office and cried because one of the things that I told her was I just didn't think my family understood. I
Right.
just wanted so bad for the people that I had always been close to understand. And she said, but what if they don't?
Right.
And it was a reality check for me. And it was that I have to get what I need to get, regardless of whether or not I get acceptance in my community or not.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that you said earlier, I can't remember verbatim, was basically like once I stepped out on that and just stopped caring,
Yeah.
there wasn't a problem with acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
And I think even if somebody didn't accept it, they probably would not have told me because they already knew that I was going to get what I needed to get anyway.
Right. Right.
You know, because by that time it's like, I'm here. I cannot suffer anymore.
Right.
Um, you know, there's that quote, pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice.
Exactly.
And I refuse to suffer.
Mm-hmm.
And so if that means I have to not care, what anybody else in my community thinks,
Mm-hmm.
then that's what I have to do, because there's too much suffering going on. You know, one of the things we talk about is that in the church, you have people that are there week after week, Sunday after Sunday, Bible study after Bible study. They're still in pain and they're still suffering.
Mm-hmm.
That is a problem.
Right.
And this past Saturday, I went to Empowerment Temple in Baltimore. They are starting their first mental health program, and it is a Black church, predominantly Black church. And I got to go with Dr. Allison Jackson and Sarah Smoot. And Dr. Allison Jackson said something that was vital. She said that the church is the cornerstone of the Black community, which means that it's the first place people go for help.
Mm-hmm.
They'll go there before they go to a counselor, before they go to a psychiatrist, before they go get help. They'll go to the church. And the problem is the church is not equipped to handle mental health. They don't have the education, and they try to demonize it and cast it out, not
Right.
understanding that it's a real illness. It's a
Mm-hmm.
real disease, just like cancer or diabetes.
Yep.
And so if you can't tell somebody that they don't need to take medication just because you don't understand it or you think it's a demon.
Right.
And people have really needed help and didn't get it because of the things coming forth that aren't true.
Right.
And so and she challenged him. And churches everywhere, basically they have the responsibility to learn, to get education on these things and really handle it differently, because if people are going there first, we have to have answers.
That's right.
So yeah, that's I don't know if that answers how I've navigated it, but my thing is that another way I've navigated it is just knowing God for myself.
Right.
My pastor that passed away in 2015, he said that all the time: you've got to know God for yourself. Don't take my word for it. And he said that all the time. And so regardless of what religion had taught me in the past, I've created my own world, and I've gotten to know who God is for me. And so I navigate my life totally different than I did before. And it works for me. It works for
Well,
me.
I think that's why you're so amazing. But I love that, because it really it creates a relationship between you and between God and between what you believe, and you don't bother yourself with what other people think about how you're making your life work for you. And certainly that we're making that sound very simple, but that is a complicated thing. And
It is complicated.
I really love what you said your counselor said to you, because that is the ultimate truth. And those are the things that, those are the questions that we have to either be posed by other people or to pose to ourselves. Is, I want this to be different. I want to be understood. And if we spend all of our lives wanting things to be something other than they are, then we miss our life in the process.
Right.
And so we have
Right.
to, it's so important for someone to say, well, what if it doesn't change? What are you going to do
Right.
if you
Right.
don't get what you want? Because sometimes the answer to your prayers is no.
Right.
Sorry, you
Oh
don't
my God.
have it that way.
Yeah. And that is the truth. Sometimes the answer is no. And I think a lot of times we don't understand that because we just don't want to hear no.
Right. Right. And if I fight and I dig in my heels and I just refuse to live my life until things turn out the way that I want them to be, then, we're the ones that suffer from that, digging in of our heels.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
We can't make people be differently than they are. All we can do is, make different choices for ourselves.
Yeah.
And
And
it,
the
That's, if that were easy, then, everyone would do it.
And I think the amazing thing is that after I made that decision, those relationships that I was the relationships I was most worried about are the ones that are good. you know,
Right.
like the ones that didn't understand, they understood it just because I was doing what I needed to do.
Right. Right.
And that, I think that's so ironic. So ironic.
Well, but
Because
don't you think, you're absolutely right. It's that whole idea about, of like fighting against something and trying to force someone to believe what you believe rather than just, letting it be what it is and hoping that you guys can find, you and that person can find common ground. And when you don't try to force them to be different and they don't try to force you to be different, then you can it is possible to find that common ground only in that space.
yeah, if you and I think, and I'm glad you said it, because that's something that I try to get people to just understand, regardless of your faith or wherever you're at in your life.
Right.
You can't force yourself on people.
Right.
And that we're all human beings and that we all are given the choice to do whatever it is that we do.
Mm-hmm.
And so here in America, period, regardless of your background,
Mm-hmm.
the idea of agreeing to disagree is almost non-existent.
Right, exactly.
It's non-existent, especially on social media. I mean, the belittlement, the self-righteousness, and basically at the end of the day, opening your heart to hear everything and everybody and having a real conversation, it's a powerful thing.
Yep.
And people, we miss out on so many things and so many loving relationships because we can't open our heart to hear a different opinion or a different idea and just have a real conversation and allow each person in that conversation to grow. Like, it's so crazy to me that we can't do that here.
You are, I mean, it's so true. I have that experience so often on social media where, I am very vocal about what I believe and how I think the world should be.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't espouse my beliefs in a way that is belittling anyone else's beliefs.
Right.
Just say,
Right.
this is the world that I value. And you're absolutely right. When we come together in love and respect, we can get so much further in our debates, in our complicated relationships with one another than if we sit down and automatically assume that the person across from us, whether literally or across from us in the Facebook thread,
Mm-hmm.
then when we assume that person is stupid or
Right.
immoral or a terrible human being that doesn't deserve to be alive,
Right.
and it's
And
my
I
job to eviscerate them publicly.
right. And I try to tell that to my faith-based community, because so many times we have our own agenda and it's like, how do you have this expectation from this person, but you don't know anything about their life?
Right.
You have no idea what they've been through. You have no idea what their history is. And for you to say, well, this person oughta or should have or
Right.
whatever, but you don't know anything about their lived experience.
Right. Right. Exactly.
And so for me, the compassion that, oh my God, the compassion that I have for people has grown so much over the years. I have so much compassion for people.
Yep.
And even if it's something that I don't agree with, I still can understand them. And I think that's something that people don't get, that you can understand a person's point of view and respect it, even if you don't necessarily agree with it because of your own experience.
Even if you staunchly disagree with it, even if you say in no time in my life would I ever share that, position. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I still respect your right to have it because like you said, I don't live in your shoes. I haven't
Yeah.
had the same experiences that you have.
Yeah. Right.
And how much further could we get if we came to each other if every person came to other humans with that level of compassion? I think
Yeah.
about all the time, in my workshop presentations that I've been doing a lot lately. Because I have a PowerPoint presentation because you need one, and I am not a charts and graphs kind of gal, but I
Yeah.
created a graph because I had the ability to do so on PowerPoint, and I call it the concentric circle of compassion.
Mm.
Because I truly believe that that when we are able to see and allow ourselves that humanity, that it starts with us, that that moment when you started seeing yourself as a person who deserved to be
Yeah.
happy and loved and get the help you needed, and no matter who Jamie is, no matter who Aaron is, even if I'm not living up to anyone's expectations, even I was born on this planet, and therefore I have the right to be whatever I am, and I have the right to whatever help I need.
Right.
When we admit that to ourselves and we start showing ourselves that level of compassion, it changes our perspective, and we
Yeah.
start providing that same level of compassion to other people.
Yeah. Yeah. That perspective change is so profound.
It is.
Um, I remember growing up in religious communities, you learn a thinking that's very black and white,
Yeah.
and it's one way or no way, basically, and that's how it just is. Period. And I remember being in crisis state, and I was taking a shower, and the thought came to me loud and clear: it's not black and white. There is a gray area.
See,
And
all the best ideas come to us in the shower.
yes, or the car and the shower, the best place.
Sorry, go ahead.
But in that moment, it is where I found the compassion for myself first. Because I was in a place I had never been before, and I was trying to figure it out, and I was trying to understand it. And I felt like in that moment that was God speaking to me and basically saying it's not black and white. It's there is a gray area.
Mm-hmm.
And one one of the things with my diagnosis was that black and white thinking, or one extreme or the other,
Right,
just
right.
really extreme, far fall off the cliff thinking. and
Right.
and that was the beginning of my healing, my personal healing for myself, and being kind to myself, and understanding that certain things aren't the end of the world, or that I'm okay. Like, so many perspectives started to change in that moment. And over the next 5 years, and I'm still changing, and I'm still growing, and still things right now that need to grow. But every day it's like something changes for me.
Right.
And the kindness that I have for myself changes. And I have to remember, sometimes I need to be reminded of that,
Yes, of course we all do. That's why we should not. That's why we have to remember that we're not alone, and that
Right,
there are people in the world who can enlighten us and shine a light on, on those areas, and that we need that support, and we need that, those people backing us up, and that's the most important thing, is just not to isolate yourself in those moments of uncertainty, and it's the hardest
right,
thing to do.
right. Yeah, yeah. I agree with that 100%. And the not isolating is really important.
Yeah, it's really important.
Really important. One of the things that I think it was Calendria Jones, that she said that we protect our mental illness, and I hadn't really thought about it that way. And it was uh, like you're right. Like, we protect it, and that's when we start to isolate. Like,
Right.
when we don't.
Mhm.
when and it goes back to what you said about pretending.
Mm-hmm.
And I found myself um back in like November, December through probably when I left my job, pretending. And I was so not happy. But
Right.
every day I was trying to push through like everything was okay. And I had to ask myself the question of why,
Mm-hmm.
because I hadn't been that far away from myself in a long time.
Right.
And I really needed to get back to the basics of where I was even 5 years ago. And just remember that, like, if I'm not happy, I need to say I'm not happy. If something isn't right, I need to say it's not right. If it's not for me, then I need to say it's not for me. And that is okay.
Yeah.
And that it's not the end of the world. But I needed to be reminded of that. And unfortunately, I did isolate my feelings at that time. And so, again, 5 years later, I'm still learning lessons and still growing and still, um, every day is not perfect, but that's okay. And that's the difference between me now and me several years ago, is the resilient factor.
Right.
Um, and the quickly forgiving myself, and not being like, oh, I messed up, like,
Right. I messed
okay,
up. Oh, I have to now, hate myself and beat myself up for 6 months and live in a hole.
right. Right. It's like, okay, I messed up. Next, what do I do now? So I do appreciate that about myself, is that I quickly forgive myself and move forward. Um, and so, yeah.
And that is the result of so much work. I mean, that is having that level of perspective is the result of many years worth of, putting yourself through the steps and through the paces of recovery and getting better. I'm often challenged sitting in a room, giving a workshop or doing a training on, the healing power of storytelling. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I remind people that this is a process that I've been going through for 12 years now.
Mm.
And it's not something that I just woke up one day and went, oh, I'm going to do this and everything's going to be better. And
Right.
then yes,
Right.
and then the next day everything was fine. That's not, it's a slow process, but that ability to slow down and to really pay attention and go inside and look at your behavior, look at the way you're reacting to the world, looking at,
Mm-hmm.
and cutting yourself slack. When I hear you say, about changing, leaving your job and, the emotions that brought up. I did the same thing in December and, changed my job and changed my, professional trajectory completely. And
Right.
I had planned for several months to, to make that shift. And I had done everything. And I had this idea in my head that I would just like leave the job that I had and loved for 5 years, completely change my trajectory, release a book, be more present with my family,
Mm-hmm.
start a podcast, start it, blah, 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 blah. Uh, and I would just jump into it immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not do that. And I, because it was not a realistic expectation that I would just, have no feelings of, loss or be overwhelmed or afraid or, upset. I was excited and I was, inspired to start this work, but I got very overwhelmed. And I looked at my husband one day and I said, it wasn't realistic for me to think that I could just jump from one thing to the next without some kind of transition. So you're going to have to bear with me because I'm not juggling all the balls as well as I would like to be and am
Right.
probably going to drop some. But instead of, going into this place of, horror and self evisceration, I just asked for help.
Mm.
And asked for the support that I needed. And for me, and was conscious that that was what was happening in that moment, and for me, that's huge. And that, it's the same, as, not the same, but you know what I mean? It's a similar situation in which after years of work, you get to the point where you can be conscious of those potential backslide moments and not fall completely back down the mountain.
Right. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because I'm kind of at that spot where, that's the reality check. Is like, you're going to have to ask for help. A lot of it is emotional help, or whatever type of help, because it's like you said, like, it's not that easy. It's not that easy.
Nope.
And so, as excited as I am, I still need support and I still need help for this new chapter in my life.
Right.
This new era in my life. Like, it's totally different. It's exhilarating. I mean, emotions are high, but I need people. I need you. I need everybody.
Right.
So here I am on Aaron's podcast asking for help.
There you go. Good. Broadcast it to the universe. Get all the help you can get. No, it's
right.
It's true. And you know what? It's also, it's really funny. I spent, all these years working in nonprofits, and I had to, fundraise. And I always hated fundraising because I felt like from the beginning, I hated asking, for what I thought was a handout. I'm going to somebody and I'm asking them for money, and that feels gross and it's awful. And I had all these ideas about it.
Right.
And then I did all this training around fundraising, and they said all the trainings that I went to said, we know that you guys all hate fundraising because you think you're asking for money and you think that makes you weak. But what you're really doing is inviting people to be part of something. You're giving them an opportunity to help you build something that is valuable to them.
Wow. I needed to hear that.
Well, it shifted my whole perspective, not just on fundraising, but on asking for help and support. You can do it. You can try to do it all by yourself, but in the end, it's never going to be as big or as impactful or as powerful as it will if you have people propping you up and supporting you in whatever way they can.
Right.
And you're giving them an opportunity to be a part of your journey. And that's so huge. And we should give each other more of those opportunities.
Yeah. That is an awesome and amazing way, probably the most amazing way that it's ever been articulated to me. And I really needed to hear that today.
Isn't it amazing how you can go to a fundraising class and change your entire perspective on the world?
Right.
If you're open to those messages, it's incredible. It really did. I just thought, oh, I get it now. That makes total sense. And it's so easier to go into any situation feeling like you're inviting people to be a part of something, as opposed to begging them to help you because you're too weak to do it on your own.
Right.
You're doing the same thing. It's just a completely different way of looking at it.
And a different way of even wording it, like, wait a minute, like, you're asking me to be a part of something greater than yourself.
Yes.
And that's the reason why I do and get involved in nonprofits and do what I do, is to be a part of something that is greater than myself, and to give my time or whatever it is that I need to give or have to give, it's such a powerful feeling. And
Right.
so to be able to invite people in to also experience that feeling,
Mm-hmm.
um, that's amazing. And that's great. I'm going to use that.
Good. I'm glad. I'm glad. So before we pushed the record button, you were talking about where you are right now and how excited you are to be in this place. And for the first time, you don't need to see the end of the road, that you have faith. I think that I'm paraphrasing that fairly
Yeah.
accurately, that, there are uncertainties, but the general certainty that you're going in the right direction is the thing that fuels you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's important to know, for everybody to know, that it being uncertain is scary. It's not easy. But I think the thing that was scarier was the direction that I was headed
Right.
before I left my job.
Mm-hmm.
And that direction was somewhere that I did not want to be and had never wanted to be again. And um, the depression and the things that were coming back full force because I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing. And the fear was starting to settle in just ways that I had not experienced in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, what was scarier was not stepping out on that faith. And once I put in my notice, um, everything started to change. And that was almost 30 days before my last day that I put in my notice. And once I put in my notice, everything started to change and the clouds started to lift. And again, even though there was uncertainty, there's still uncertainty, the peace that I have, um, and just being in my life as it is right now,
Mm-hmm.
um, is priceless. And I know that everything is okay in exactly the way that it needs to be right now. And so there's so much peace in that, regardless of what I don't know, I'm good and I'm in the moment, like I'm living in the moment. Because honestly, I think I was more worried about everything before I put in my notice. I had more worry in my life.
No, I hear that. I feel like we're in such a similar place in our, professional lives right now. And I hear you. I feel so much peace. And I was so torn up about that, making that decision. And
Mhm.
then the second the decision was made and I was moving forward in that direction, it was like, all right, I know where I'm going now. I
Yeah,
don't know where I'm going to end up, but I know where I'm headed.
yeah, yeah. And it's great. Like I actually did, and I didn't post it, but I probably will. I started to post on Facebook everything that I had done in 30 days after leaving my job.
You should do that.
And the 30 days after leaving my job, I had done so much. I was like, whoa, like this is nuts. Like, who does that?
Right.
Um, and my friend Sarah said to me, you needed to leave your job
Mm-hmm.
because you are busy. And she's like,
You don't have time for that.
yeah. And she's like, you have time for a job. And I'm like, wow, and I mean, honestly, like when I stopped to calculate the cost of what I would have missed had I been somewhere that I didn't need to be,
Mm-hmm.
um, it just, you can't put a price on that. You
Right.
can't put a price on that. And so I just thank my Heavenly Father um, for making me do what I need to do,
Right.
making me, step out on that faith that I always tell everybody, the same. I had to practice what I preach to
Yes.
everybody else. And I just feel so empowered now to live this life and um, to just do what I do. I started Be the Change Consulting Services last August. I formed my LLC, And I had to remember my why. Why is this important? And it's important to change lives. It's important because I want to help other people become leaders and teach people that are currently leaders, and um, just instill the things that have been instilled in me in other people. And it's so important to do this work that we do in the mental health field, and even with others that aren't in the mental health field, but they want personal development and they want to change their lives. And so they
Right.
want a life coach or a wellness coach to help them reach that goal. And so that needs to be done. And I couldn't really do it effectively where I was at. So, yeah.
Mm. The thing that keeps coming up for me right now is just, your life and your experiences and your I courage and bravery always sounds so cheesy these days because they're so overused, but it's true, and you are. Um, but just the trajectory that you are on is proof that there is life after uh, you know mental illness, and that there is recovery is possible, and that you know being in that place that that you were in and that I was in and that so many people have found themselves in is not the end. It's the beginning. And getting help and looking inside yourself and finding a community and being connected and not isolating. It's just showing up every day and taking those steps. And I
Yeah.
just I'm so grateful that you are a part of the If You Could See Me project. And but even more so, I'm glad that you're in the world doing the work that you're doing and being amazing.
Thank you, Erin. That means a lot to me. That means a lot to me.
Good.
And I'm grateful for the work that you're doing and that you're giving us this platform and the opportunity to share with the world. It means so much to me. You're giving voice to so many of us, and we need that platform. And so I appreciate what it is that you're doing.
Well, thank you. Is there anything else that you want to share with the audience out there about you, about your work, about the world before we go about our days?
Um, Probably number one, if you need help, I know it sounds easier said than done, but ask for help. You know, what you'll get in return is probably 100% opposite of what you're thinking.
Yeah.
And so, giving voice to whatever it is that you're going through, um, especially that it's because it's Mental Health Awareness Month, um, you are not alone. And there are people out there that want to help you get through whatever struggle it is that you're going through. You are not alone. And honestly, 1 in 4 people are going through the same
Right,
type of thing,
exactly.
statistically speaking. And so we are here. I would even give my business number, 804-585-8078. Be the Change Consulting Services, LLC. If you don't have a resource, maybe I can help point you to a resource for whatever it is that you need. That's why I do the work that I do, to help change this world. So that's really, I think that's really it. That's my parting proverb.
Well, that's very powerful power, and I really appreciate it, Jamie. Thank you so much, and I'll see you this weekend.
Yes, you will. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye bye.